The dream is dead. After months of a lot happening while simultaneously nothing happening at all, this whole Brandon Aiyuk thing has finally come to an end. And on one hand, I'm pretty happy that it's just over. On the other hand, I'm rather pissed. This whole thing has just been so stupid. But hi, welcome in. If you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed yet, you should do that because now I'm just an annoyed boy who's got to deal with this idiotic stuff, this months-long saga that just ends with what most people expected it to end with for the majority of the offseason, myself included in that. And then beginning of August, all of these new reports come out of like, okay, he might actually be traded. And the Steelers look like they're going to get him. And then a guy with a dog profile picture is like, dude, it's happening 100%. He's a Steeler. And then all the insiders deny it. And then a few hours later, they're like, okay, it might happen too. It looks like it really could happen. Rappaport saying he might be a Steeler. Like, and then we just have weeks of just repetitive nothingness. And then a few days of radio silence. Brandon Aiyuk doesn't show up to practice for the past few days. And then randomly, like an hour ago, just signs an extension. First off, I mean, tip of the cap to Brandon Aiyuk. He played this perfectly and got paid. So good for him. 4 years, $120 million, $30 million a year. So, I mean, good for him. Definitely, used everything to his power and got what he wanted, which was, staying in San Francisco and getting paid in the process of it. So good for him. Sincerely. I'm not even trying to be a smartass there. Good for him. And the second part of this is this was a pretty bad, like the first real, like, that's not good type of situation for Omar Khan. Because it's pretty evident that the Steelers put all of their eggs in the Brandon Aiyuk basket and they came away with nothing. That's very evident of that. Jahan Dotson was traded. They could have been in on that. Noah Brown was released. They could have been in on that. Tim Patrick was reportedly available for trade before being released. They could have been in on that. Jerry Jeudy went for a pair of day 3 picks earlier this offseason. They could have been in on that. Like plenty of stuff has happened that the Steelers could have easily just been like, yeah, we'll do that. And by the way, I don't necessarily knock Omar too much for this. Like, yeah, it didn't get done and it doesn't look good. But again, they were going big game hunting. It didn't work out. And yes, like everybody has a right to be upset about that and it not working out and there not being a backup plan. Sure, absolutely, 100%. I agree. And maybe I'm just coping right now and you can call it what it is. But I still admire the fact that the Steelers have a general manager who's willing to try to make moves like this. So yeah, am I upset that it didn't happen? Of course I am. I wish it would have gone the way Steelers fans would have liked it to go. I wish that Brandon Aiyuk was a Steeler. And this was handled poorly by Omar Khan for not having some sort of backup plan in case this exact thing happened. But I will say that I'm still happy that the Steelers have a general manager who is willing to make these kinds of moves and go balls to the wall and try to make a trade happen. Now, apparently he didn't offer enough, or else Brandon Aiyuk would probably be a Steeler right now. So I wish that he probably would have offered the first round pick. I've said that all offseason too. Now they're probably going to take a receiver in the first round anyway. You may as well have just given up the first round pick and gotten Aiyuk. But instead, here we are, and now they're going into the season with obviously George Pickens, who's great. I shouldn't even say great. He's very good. I wouldn't put him in the great tier yet. I think you have to have a pretty spectacular year to be considered great. He hasn't had that yet. Great skill set, But so they got Pickens, obviously, and question marks. Van Jefferson, going to be your number 2 outside receiver. Roman Wilson's been hurt all camp. Calvin Austin is going into year 3, basically year 2. He was hurt all of his rookie year. Seeing him up close and personal, he had a good offseason, but we haven't seen it transition to the field yet. Hopefully it does. But yeah, now there's a lot of questions. So what do they do now? Because in some way, shape, or form, they got to pivot. They can call the Texans. Hey, what will it take to get John Mechie? He's 4th on the depth chart right now, behind Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. See if you can get John Mechie. If they're not willing to give up John Mechie, see if Robert Woods. Now, personally, I don't think that's. I wouldn't do the Robert Woods thing. He's old. He's you may as well just kept Allen Robinson at that point if you're going to go get Robert Woods. I don't think that's something they should pursue. Maybe Xavier Hutchinson, who's also on that roster. The Texans have a lot of good receivers. Call Tennessee. Hey, we'll give you one of these 7s for Treylon Burks. What do you say? Or we'll give you a 2026 6th for Treylon Burks. How about it? Those are the immediate things that they can do. Or they can keep playing this long game. And when the Raiders are inevitably, 2-7 by week 9, call up the Raiders. Hey, what do you want for Devontae Adams? And that is a long game I am more than willing to play. Obviously, yes, Aiyuk would have been the dream, and it's what most Steelers fans were hoping was going to happen. But at this point, you got to pivot. Because he can't stand, respect to all of the, the receivers on the Steelers roster, but there's a reason they were trying to get Aiyuk, and it's because Van Jefferson's not a starter. You got big question marks with Calvin Austin, big question marks with Roman Wilson. Scotty Miller's your 5th. I like Scotty Miller, but you got to get somebody else to be a legit number 2 to Pickens, or somebody who's a legit 1 and Pickens could be the 2, one of those 2. Yeah. So there's a lot that needs done in terms of trying to find somebody. And again, look, I can admire Omar Khan for going balls to the wall with this and trying to get Brandon Aiyuk and trying to land a big name. I'm glad that the Steelers have a GM who's willing to do that. But he also should have had a backup plan, which very clearly they did not. And really, I think, if I'm just guessing, when they traded Deontay Johnson, they fully expected to bring in somebody else. And I think they overestimated just how easy that was going to be. Because they called Denver about Courtland Sutton. And Denver told them no. And they reportedly called a half dozen teams about other receivers. And according to Mike Lombardi, they thought they had a deal with the 49ers going into draft day about getting somebody, whether it be Debo or Brandon Aiyuk. They didn't just free up all that money the day before the draft for nothing. They fully expected to get somebody on draft day, and it didn't work out. Fell through. So now they got to do something else. And whatever that may be, like I said, if it's Mechie, okay. I would have liked to have seen them bring in a Noah Brown. I think that would have been, an upgrade. Treylon Burks, you're just banking on upside at that point. Michael Thomas, maybe. I'm pretty sure he's still a free agent. I know I saw some people, still saying maybe they reach out about DK. I don't think the Seahawks are going to give up DK. I think if they give up any of the receivers, it would be Tyler Lockett just because he's older. So it's an unfortunate day. Steelers fans have been really holding on to the possibility of Brandon Aiyuk being a Steeler for quite literally like 5 months at this point. Beginning of April is when all this stuff started happening because he tweeted at Mike Tomlin, and everybody's like, oh, maybe Brandon Aiyuk could be a Steeler. So a lot of different things that they got to do, or that they can do, but they got to pivot in some way, shape, or form. If I'm ranking them, I would probably go Mechie. I think he has high upside. Well, I guess if I'm ranking Devontae Adams, like if you got to wait till like week 9, week 10, okay, I'll wait for Devontae Adams. Sure, why not? That's one that I'd love to see happen. I'm sure a lot of people are like, it's impossible. They can't get Devontae Adams. Okay, watch the Raiders play football this year. I saw Devontae Adams talking on receiver on Netflix. Watch them be 2-7 by week 9. You think Devontae Adams is going to be happy and want to stay in Vegas catching passes from Gardner Minshew and Aiden goddamn O'Connell? Okay. So watch the Raiders play football this year and tell me that Devontae Adams is going to be there all year. Okay. And if there's reports that Devontae Adams wants out, I promise you Omar Khan will be on the phone to Mark Davis and be like, hey, fella, what'll it take to get him? So that's the long game one that they can play. But if they want, an immediate thing, I mean, hell, they can do both. Like if they wanted to trade for Mechie now, and then if Devontae Adams becomes available, trade for Devontae Adams, then hey, you got my seal of approval. Do it. So they got to do something. Hopefully they do at least one thing. Maybe they end up doing multiple throughout the course of the year. But yes, obviously this isn't how fans wanted this to go. It's certainly not how I wanted it to go. But that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I see all of you commenting. We'll dive into it here real quick. Dustin, what are your thoughts on extending Freiermuth? Are you for or against it? Yeah, I think they'll extend Muth. I think that'll get done. Don't see why they wouldn't. He'll be there for the long haul. I have a very deep, dark hiding on Twitter. Also have to change my profile photo. Yeah, man. It's I mean, anytime it's a Brandon Aiyuk profile picture, yeah, you're gonna have to go into a little bit of hiding. Have a wide receiver 2, a wide receiver 5, and a bunch of unproven guys now. There isn't any options anywhere now. And look, that comes back to the Steelers really just banking on the fact that they thought that they were going to get Aiyuk, or banking on the fact that they thought they were going to get somebody after they traded Deontay Johnson, or they were pretty certain they were going to get somebody on draft day. Like I said, they called the Broncos both before and during the draft saying, hey, what can we give you to get Cortland Sutton? And the Broncos pretty much told them to kick rocks both times. So I think that they overestimated just how busy the market was going to be, and it kind of bit them in the butt. We have Pickens and Roman and 3 Jarrett Baileys in the wide receiver room. Sucks, but we pivot. Devontae season. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Hopefully Devontae Adams becomes a Steeler. That would make me pretty happy. Look, like I said, Calvin Austin, good offseason. Hopefully it translates onto the field. I like Scotty Miller. I think he's a fine depth piece. Van Jefferson's Van Jefferson. Like, I don't care how good he looked in the preseason. He was, a third receiver, 4th option in the Rams offense when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. Wasn't really one of the top options in Atlanta. Like, he's fine as a depth guy, but he's not a starting receiver. They skipped so many free agent options that signed fair deals in March. Yeah, they did. They did. I wonder if they were a team that was in on like Stephon Diggs stuff. Maybe. In terms of trading for Diggs. Maybe. Guys like, Curtis Samuel got a good deal from the Bills. That would have been a fine signing. I think he would have been a fine 2. And a guy that you can move around both inside and on the boundary. I think that would have been a fine signing. Yeah, there's a lot of guys that they could have done that with. Devontae Adams is worth maybe a 5th or 6th at best with this insane. Look, he's going to have to go for more than that. And the Steelers wouldn't eat all of that cap. The Raiders would take some of that. Homer's burner. Sad day, man. Yeah, pour one out for all of that. Scrolling through. Mechie and Woods aren't upgrades, and Burks has been. I would say Mechie's an upgrade. Mechie's absolutely an upgrade. If you look at his box stats, obviously they're not going to look great, but it's because he's buried on the depth chart and he also fought a cancer diagnosis. So, I mean, there was a lot of high hopes for Mechie coming out of Alabama. It's just he had to, battle cancer and then come back, and he's buried on the depth chart because they got so many good receivers. So, Mechie's an absolute upgrade. He would be the immediate 2. I agree. Robert Woods isn't. Like I said, if they wanted to keep an aging receiver, they should have just kept Allen Robinson around. So I don't think Robert Woods is a good idea at all. Burks, yeah, you're just banking on upside. I blame Jarrett Bailey. It's clearly all his fault. Hey, I don't know what to tell you. Anytime I would say I'm not talking about Brandon Aiyuk anymore, he did something to make me talk about him. Everyone was blaming Jared on Twitter. He already got some nice feedback for his Ravens article. I don't care, dude. It's so funny that people get so butthurt anytime you criticize Lamar Jackson. Whatever. You can do it to any other player. You can do it to Josh Allen all you want. You can do it to Joe Burrow all you want. You can do it to TJ Watt all you want. God forbid somebody say anything remotely negative about Lamar Jackson. And then everybody gets their pitchforks out. They got to make sure that he stays coddled. I don't get it. It's okay to, it's like Lamar Jackson, very good player, still overrated. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. They can both exist at the same time. And and you go through those comments, there's not anybody who's like has a good dispute to anything I wrote because I backed it up with numbers and facts. They're just pissed off Ravens fans that think that their golden boy can do no wrong when he hasn't won any sort of like huge game in his career. And the 2 biggest games that he's played, he's thrown a soul-crushing interception to end it. So, I don't care. That's their business to be pissed off about. It's my business to write my thoughts, and I did. There's no one to spend that $18 million on cap space. Not even Justin Simmons. I mean, the Justin Simmons thing would have been fine, but I don't think Justin Simmons was moving the needle. Because you already have a Minkah Fitzpatrick. Like, yeah, it would have been cool to have both of them, but like it wouldn't have drastically moved the needle for them. Jamar Chase to Pittsburgh. I mean, at least you're acknowledging that you're delusional. Yeah, Jamar's not going anywhere. The Bengals will pay him. Bengals are weird. I don't know why they have to play these games. They'll pay him. Have a wide receiver 1 and a bunch of varsity high school receivers. Yeah, it's not great, mate. It's not great. It's not great. So there's a lot of things that they can do. Hopefully they do a few of them. Or at least one of them. And like I said it all offseason. Look, I would trade a 1 for Brandon Aiyuk. Obviously, that didn't happen. But I do wonder if it was offered, if the 49ers would have accepted it. Because I would much rather them have just bitten the bullet and been like, look, we need him. We'll give you the 1. Everybody kind of comes away somewhat victorious here. You get a first-round pick to make your team better in the future. We get a really good receiver to make us better now and in the future. So we'll never know, I guess. But Diana Rossini did report that the 49ers offered a 3rd-round pick to Denver for Courtland Sutton, and if they would have gotten Courtland Sutton, then they would have sent Aiyuk they wanted a receiver to fill the hole that Aiyuk was going to leave. And if Denver would have said yes to the 49ers, then the Steelers would have gotten Aiyuk. So we can kind of shake our fist at the Broncos right now, too, for not accepting that, because that's pretty annoying. I don't know what the hell Denver has up their ass right now where they're so protective over Courtland Sutton, but it's pissing me off. It's pissed me off all offseason. Because he could have been a Steeler. I would have been cool with that. Would have been very cool with getting Courtland Sutton in Pittsburgh. And now he could have been a 49er, which would have made Brandon Aiyuk be a Steeler. But no, Denver's got to be a stickler for zero reason whatsoever. That's a 5-win team at most this year. But they got to be a stickler for what? They just drafted Troy Franklin. They signed Josh Reynolds. Who else do they have there? I don't know. I think the Broncos are going to be really bad. The point is, what the hell do you need Courtland Sutton for? You're going to be bad. Name under discussed at this deadline. At the deadline that I believe possible is Darius Slayton. Maybe. That's a possible one. I mean, I'm still going to go back to Chris Godwin. I think Chris Godwin's a realistic thing that we could look like in season if the Buccaneers are struggling, because this is the last year of his contract. He's more than likely not going to be back in Tampa after this year. He'll sign elsewhere. So if the Buccaneers are struggling, like they're 4-5 or 3-6 at the trade deadline, and we'll trade Chris Godwin to somebody for a draft pick. I think that's a name that you can watch at the deadline and see if Pittsburgh is active on. Obviously, Devontae Adams is the dream one now, and that's the new focus. We move. So Darius Slayton, yeah, possibility. I would like them to aim higher, but we'll see. Cortland Sutton is the biggest loser, being stuck with Bo Nix, and yeah, I love that Broncos fans are doing the exact same thing that Steelers fans did last year, watching Bo Nix look okay in the preseason and think that he's God. Okay. Good luck. I think that Bo Nix is going to have a very similar career arc to Mac Jones. I think his rookie year, he might look fine, and everybody will think he's going to be really good, and then he'll just away he goes. What do you think the pit trade would have been for Aiyuk? My guess, a 2 and a 4, 2 and a 5, at least in this year's draft, and maybe another pick in 2026. That would be my guess. A second-round pick, an early day 3 pick in this coming draft, and then in 2026, maybe a mid-day 2 pick, early day 3 pick. Just if I had to guess. 2 to 3 draft picks. I don't think they were sending a player. Sutton is apparently more valuable than a third to Denver. Well, the Broncos are idiots. Because I like Cortland Sutton, don't get me wrong. But, why are you keeping him? Cortland Sutton's not... unfortunately, Cortland Sutton's a very talented player, and I like Cortland. But look who's throwing him the ball. Look what else is on that team. Cortland Sutton can't win you 10 games by himself. That's a bad football team. Who, by the way, also didn't give him any sort of new deal. That thing never got resolved. He just kind of caved and said, all right, yeah, we're not going to get anything here. I'll just go back and play. I mean, maybe he's a trade deadline guy. We'll see if the Broncos are struggling at the deadline. I don't know what his contract looks like. I think he's still got a few years left on his deal. So, yeah. I think the Broncos should be doing everything that they can to get as much draft capital as they can, because they're going to stink. Jarrett now doesn't have to talk Aiyuk starting tomorrow, and I cannot wait. This is the last day I got to talk about Brandon Aiyuk. Here. Doubt any of the Packers receivers are available. I don't think so. I think Green Bay is kind of starting a new trend where you don't necessarily need a definitive number one. If you got 3 or 4 B+ dudes who are capable high-end 2s that can come together to be really dangerous, I think we'll see some teams start to go down that route. Because all their dudes are awesome. Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, all of them bring something to the table that's really fun. And when they're all on the field at the same time, those are 4 legit receivers you got to account for, and you can't. It's in today's NFL, you cannot stop all of them. At least one of them is going to eat. So, yeah, I love the Packers receiving room. I think they're awesome. Steelers content creators. Yeah, I'm so sick of talking Brandon Aiyuk. Come on, man. We know. Look, I understand that people will watch it. So, obviously, he does good numbers. I'm sure that this will do good numbers. So, in that aspect, yeah, it benefits me for sure. I would much rather be talking about the Steelers successfully, acquiring him and making this entire thing worth it. But when it was 5 months of just the same stuff every day where there was nothing new, it was completely repetitive, then yeah, that got old pretty quick, which is why I was like, look, I'm not going to talk about it anymore unless something happens. And then, of course, things started happening. So it was just a pain in the butt. 49ers lose their first 7-8 games, then trade Aiyuk. They'd be eating a ton of dead money. And they still got to figure out how they're going to pay Trent Williams now. Because I tell you what, as talented as Brandon Aiyuk is, that might be the worst offensive line in football. And if Trent Williams isn't on the field, they're not going to have any time to do anything anyway. So they got to figure that out next. They got to figure that thing out quick. Most Steelers writers with their fake sources lost all credibility. I mean, I don't think that there was too many, people in my little sphere of friends that are on the beat that were like claiming to have sources on the situation. I know a few guys from like the Post Gazette were saying, I think it was Fittipaldo went on one of the radio shows today and said he thought it was like 80-20 that the Steelers would end up with Aiyuk. I think that he was just kind of guesstimating. I don't think he claimed a source on that. He might have. I don't know. I didn't listen. I just saw it on Twitter. But no, I think that I'll say this, you talk about guys like Nick Farabaugh. I know for a fact he's got sources, the Steelers now guys, like legit guys that are really good at this. Like I know that they do. Especially like Farabaugh put out like the day before that the Steelers were in on Justin Fields, and a bunch of people called it BS and questioned his, of having any sources or anything like that. And then the next day they trade for Fields, and he took a much deserved victory lap. So I don't think that, people with sources, like the sources could tell them things that they genuinely believe, like, hey, I think we're going to get this guy. And then they write that down because, okay, a source within the organization said that they think they're going to get this guy. Doesn't mean that they're lying. They're saying what was told to them, I've had sourced information before that didn't end up with what the source said. And yeah, you kind of take it on the chin because people think that you're making shit up, but that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes, man. So I don't think there's anybody who claims to have sources. I don't think they're faking it. I just think that sometimes shit happens. So is Deebo just okay now knowing he's as good as gone in a year being a sitting duck essentially? I mean, these guys understand it's a business, Like Deebo's still going to make money regardless of where he goes. And he's going to play this year with a team that has a chance to win a Super Bowl. And same thing with, guys like T. Higgins. T. Higgins is going to show up for the Bengals, and he's going to play his ass off, try to earn a contract, and try to win a Super Bowl, What's the Steelers going to add now, if anything, before week 1? Or are they just with 5 receivers? I mean, they have 4 tight ends, so they're always going to roll with 5. If they were to acquire Aiyuk, my guess is they would have just moved somebody down to the practice squad. I think they would have still kept 6 receivers. I think they would have moved somebody else in a different position group down to the practice squad. But for now, I mean, they have 4 tight ends on the roster. I think they're just going to roll with 5 for the time being. So we'll see. We will see. But yeah, I just wanted to come on here and kind of, this is the last time we're going to ever have one of these shows, right? Where we're talking about Brandon Aiyuk and the Steelers. Now this is officially the bookend of that, signing a 4-year, $120 million deal with San Francisco. I did a quick piece on Behind the Steel Curtain about Omar Khan kind of putting all his eggs in that basket, and it kind of blew up in their face. Similar to what I've said here. But if you want to read it, go to behindthesteelcurtain.com. If you want to read I think it was Omar's Burner, talked about the piece I did on the Ravens at sbnation.com. Yeah, I think a lot of you will agree with it. People on Twitter who are Ravens fans didn't. Shocking, I know. So, it is what it is. Obviously, this didn't go the way that Steelers fans would have liked. Didn't go the way I would have liked. But we're going to see how this thing plays out. Devontae Adams and Pickens with Dak next year is going to... You know what, mate? I can get behind that. And I got to tell you, they have the money to do it. They'll have the money to do it. That would kick ass. I'm going to tweet this later. I'm just going to tweet pictures of Devontae Adams, George Pickens, and is there anybody out there that has seen a Dak Prescott Steelers edit? Is there anybody out there that can do a Dak Prescott Steelers edit? I might have to shoot a text to Graphic God and see if he can do that. Because I need one of those to start pushing an agenda. Especially if by week 7, like both the quarterbacks look bad. I'm gonna be that annoying guy about it. So forgive me in advance. Yeah, I'll start pushing that agenda for sure. And I will do it happily with a smile on my face. So regardless, the season starts in 1 week. Oh, that's good. Just get a clip of Dak yelling, "Here we go," before the snap. That's very good. That's very good. I think that's funny. Yeah, he's been telling us where he wants to play for the past 2 years. There we go. That's the most annoying thing about watching Cowboys games. Him doing that and then watching Chiefs games, and after every play, Mahomes doing he's finger blasting the air. Oh, I hate that. I hate that to no end. Just after every throw. Get fucked. I hate that. Oh. All right, that's probably a good place to stop. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Did NFC over-unders with Mike Tanier on the pump fake earlier this week. Go and watch that. All the recent black and gold breakdowns. We'll be doing that throughout the season. And then a new podcast I'm doing with my friend from CBS Sports, Eli Berkovitz. That'll have its own YouTube channel. I'll start plugging that once we get close to the first episode. We're going to be doing that next. Are we doing it this Monday? I think we're doing it Monday. So I'll tease that a little bit and let you guys know where you can subscribe to that. So that'll be fun. It'll be every Monday, Friday. Me and Eli Berkovitz. Hang Time is the name of the podcast. So that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, subscribe to the channel. Watch all the Black and Gold Breakdown shows. You can watch all of the Pump Fake shows here, or you can listen to the Pump Fake wherever you get your podcasts. And if you do, leave a nice review, leave a comment. I read all of them, even the mean ones. So don't leave a mean one. It'll make me sad. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in as always. And we're officially putting this thing to bed. So the last time we'll ever talk about the potential of Brandon Aiyuk coming to Pittsburgh, it is over. The dream is dead. And now we mourn. We can mourn for a little bit, but the season kicks off in a week and we move. So subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. I'll see y'all later. Enjoy your night. Take care of yourselves. We'll talk soon.